All right, so what's going on, guys? So I'm back home. I'm back in Chicago, and I want to give you guys this quick word because as I've been traveling, as I've been talking to different people, as I've been witnessing all the events that are going on in the world, as I look at the division, the unity, all the different strife, the discussions, the arguments, the agreements, everything that's going on in this world, I want to give you guys this word because if you begin to grasp the gravity of this idea, then I believe that it will take you places that you never would have thought you would go. And I'm talking about intellectually. I'm talking about with wisdom, with your understanding of God's will, of God's sovereignty. Because we're in an hour right now where we can't progress, we can't grow, we can't mature, we can't have unity without at least beginning to grasp the gravity of this. And that is that God is a big God. And everyone's going to be like, oh, what are you talking about, bro? Like, of course he's a big God. What I'm talking about is that so many people, we have our own experiences. We have our own preconceived notions. We're coming to the table with what we believe is the best, even if it's anchored on the word, even if it's anchored on logical, rational reasoning, even if it's the best in mind that you have for somebody. Our brain, our comprehension, our narrow view of how we observe and assimilate into and receive knowledge and our perception of the world is nothing like what God sees. God, he sees he's outside of time and space, guys. God is so sovereign in his ability to see the domino effect, the butterfly effect, the consequences, all the different intricacies behind a movement, how it affects somebody else, and all the different connections between things. He understands the thoughts people have. He understands the smallest of organisms and how that might impact something in a large way. And if that large thing is going to then affect the world in a different way, the gravity of how God sees something and how big it is, it's way bigger than what any of us, the smartest people that are ever together in a room, can be able to comprehend. And the reason I say this is because when I read the Bible, when I read different people's stories, it just doesn't make sense sometimes. The way that Joseph and his entire story of him being sold to the Egyptians, and then he had to go to Potiphar's house, and he went to jail or prison for 2 years, and just his entire wacky story among many other stories. Daniel is another one. Many people, Queen Esther, all these different characters, the sequence of events that took place and how even if they were faithful, even if they messed up, King David, Solomon, many people, even in the midst of that, God's will was done. But so many people, the reason we don't have unity, the reason we can't elevate and move to the next level is because so many people are so caught up in saying, no, this is the right way. No, there's no other way. No, I can't think and comprehend how God would work any other way than this way. And people think that you have to, you don't want to sin, right? But God, in the midst of you messing up, in the midst of them taking a detour, maybe a less than a pleasing or less than reasonable path, even in the midst of that, when they come around, when God uses all that, he works all things for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, guys. And so if you begin to understand that, God is still using all these different things. And because so many people are so strict, just because you think, you have the right education, you think you have the right, you're right with God, you're holy, just because, I haven't sinned, just because my denomination and my education and my giftings are good, just because we have those things. And that doesn't question if you're a good person or not. It's not doing that, right? But because a lot of us, we're taking our own sort of paradigm, our own preconceived notions, our own ideologies, even if whether it's pride, whether it's outright pride, or whether it's just our own positive experience on who God is and how he's impacted our lives, we're bringing that to the table, and it could be a good thing. Well, because God, he's such a bigger God, when he uses a different story, when he uses a different path, when he uses somebody in a vastly different way and it doesn't align to or agree with what our path of how that person should be going looks like, then you run into problems. It's borderline, even if you're humbling yourself, it's borderline on pride, because God, what he does is he has so many random ways to do things. In our mind, it looks stupid and random, like Joseph's story and Daniel's story and all these, Israelites doing random things. But God, he's a sovereign God, and he's using all these different things for his will and his purpose. And so because we're not able to humble ourselves and see, man, maybe somebody, the way that God is encountering them, the way that God is using them, the way that God is growing them, the way that the world is working, the way that God is using certain people, even though they are people that I don't agree with or that I don't like, that they don't seem qualified to do something, even whatever circumstance that is, even though we may not look at it as a godly thing or a pleasing thing, God, he could be using that as a way and a means to evangelize, to disciple, to make an impact on the world. Whatever it is, he's doing those things, right? And so I'm not saying that we should just let everything be and let everybody be whoever they want. You want to disciple, you want to outreach, you want to be able to discuss and say, hey, this is what I believe is a God-honoring decision. But what I'm saying is that because we're so tied up, we're so, in essence, prideful, we're so just one-dimensional that we can't see how God could be bigger. He could be so big to be able to orchestrate something in the way our rational small mind can't comprehend. Even though you may have lived on this earth for 50, 60, 70 years, even though you might be in right standing with God and you know the Bible front to back, even though you might be so deep in your prayer life and you are holy, don't confuse your longevity in your life. Don't confuse how holy you are and how much you have spent time with God as being that this way or that way is the right way. Because God is such a big God, he's using all these different things for his glory. And so you have to realize that. And I'm not saying that we can fully comprehend what's going on and how to sort of look at all the different effects and the cause and effects and the relationships and how it's going to get us to an end goal. But what I'm saying is that if you begin to humble yourself and say, man, God is a big God, and it might be something that I don't comprehend. It may be steps A, B, C, D, E, F that I don't maybe see or agree with, but it could be the zigzag path that is needed for one to get to the other side. I would never have imagined if you were to paint the story of Joseph and say, hey, this is how he's going to get to be second to the Pharaoh. This is how he's going to redeem the Israelites in this hour. If you were to draft that story up, I would have a hard time believing it. But because God, he's using random stories all across the world for different Christians in the same vein and even more radically different than Joseph's story in this hour, even if you're faithful, even if you're not, doesn't matter, because God is a sovereign over this. You have to realize that God, he's using that for his glory. And it's not going to agree with a lot of people. It's not going to, make you happy the way that path is being taken. But that is the path that God has for many people's lives, for many circumstances, the country of the world, the different movements in the world, how he's going to redeem and use certain things to alleviate, to restore, to redeem, whatever that is, guys, right? And so all I'm saying here is that God is a big God. And we don't know, our two eyes and our two ears, we're not able to fully comprehend everything in the world. There's not that much information. There's so much information that we can't comprehend and fully digest it the way God can. So we have to begin to do that. Don't confuse your life and your wisdom, your understanding, your prayer life and everything and saying that I can fully comprehend something. There's stuff that you don't know and you can't understand that you have to be able to humble yourself to see and say, man, I give it up to you, Lord. May your will be done, Lord. God bless you. Talk to you guys very soon.